Alright, folks, welcome back. It is day 21. 皆さん、お帰りなさい。今日は21日目です。So, 118. Alright. It looks like, yeah, it's about 118. Looks like tomorrow is the day. Oh, I'll have to take that into consideration. So, tomorrow is the day where we're getting cycling. It looks like it's cycling every 5 days. Or like the previous level. So, and we should cover some of our errors, right? Although this says recent errors only this because of the 24 hours. Let's remind ourselves of what we missed. So, kore, I think it was this one. So I wrote like this is in like this is like parenthetical is this one. I wrote ka instead of hi, so hinode. Hinode, and this one was Guy Fawkes, which now I have a vivid image of the mask thanks to Gecko. This one was mistaken for tada, so she, what I'm looking for here. I wrote arrow instead of life here, and I missed the rendaku on this. So, bidama. And this was also part of yesterday, which was taishita, and it was a translation. Taishita wrote ookisa instead of taishita, the translation. So let's get into it. Long day today. Today is our conclusion of one of our the ongoing Neverwinter module. So we gotta stick that into the end. Tomorrow is when we start our Duolingo Japanese review, 3-part review. So it'll be Duolingo Japanese at the end of the next 3 days. That might be a problem on the third day because oh no. Oh, it might be a problem on the second day. We'll see how that works out because some of our radicals are maturing then, so we're gonna have another set of lessons coming up. We'll play it by ear. I did end up finishing reviewing all the constructs. There were fewer constructs than I originally imagined because the last 100 days was not quite accurate. There were flowovers because I also took some time to review this one. So let's hop right in. No time like the present. Do our new routine. See how it goes.晚上好，好，Long time no see，好久不见。Um, this doing he. You did find a short short put pickle on. He gave it, oh, a short on it. Oh, 8.5 out of 10. Oh, okay. I'm not surprised that someone has done it. Nice. I'll have to try it sometime. I could buy like one of those small rolls of Oreos that come in like a 5-pack or something. I watch a lot of food things like that. On the side, my guilty pleasure, my like doom scroll, my doom scroll content is things like that where people just like experimenting with food, so they do things. Yes, 好久不见. 10 minutes? Has it been 10 minutes already? Okay, alright. Right? Got a lot of things to do today, so keep on track. Hope you learn well. I'm gonna do some research things. Alright, good luck, Zhao. Good luck. Thank you. Oops. What was this? Oh, yeah. I was talking about the mnemonic. Oops. I still write this, yes. Right. Uh, that's a little iffy. Oops. 2 lessons. Alright, so let's get the 2 lessons. Left and right is just left and right. It's not thing. Interesting. Left and right. We learned left and right in Hansa Hero for thing. Dongxi. Right. But left and right. So put left and right together and you end up with left and right. Just make sure you say them in the right order. Left and right. Both ways, influence, control. Okay. Makes sense. Both ways. What is that? A verbal noun. Interesting. So I guess you combine the... Oh, no, it's not. It's a... oh, wait. Okay, so it's Jukogo, so onyomi, but they're... Oh, no, sayu. Yeah, sayu makes sense. Because you, sa, we already have all the things, so...
Sayu.
Sayu. Okay, sayu. First down. Sayu. Okay. ジャケットの左右。左右にはポケットがあります。So it has on the left and right. Okay. 左右を見てから Is that a U? U turn してね。してね。Just straight up U. Okay. コストは日本の人口の大きさに左右されます。Oh, depends. Okay. それはね。それはBig E? Interesting. I don't know if that's a typo or not. 天気に左右される. Interesting. Alright. And then our other one, the left direction, right? So we have the right direction and we have the left direction. Right, and this is hidari. So what's the mnemonic for hidari?
Hidari.
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 So hidari, imagine hearing someone to your left saying, "Hey, Daddy," which is supposed to be "Hey there." Oh, hey, Daddy. Oh, interesting. Or hi there, or hi, dearie. Okay, I can get behind that actually. You turn left and there's no one there. You hear it again. Hey, Daddy. Keep turning to left until you find the person saying hi to you. Interesting. I quite like that one. Yeah, those are definitely patterns of use. 私は左利きです。利きです。Interesting. お、利きです。入り口は左のドアでしょう。左目のコンタクトレンズがない。Alright, so that's not too bad. I like the hidari, hi dairy, hidari, and then left and right, which self-explanatory. Yeah, even based on our stuff. Okay. So, sayu. Yeah, sayu. Hidari. Nice. Do we get the that's it. Yeah, less than 30 minutes, right? I don't think adding 50 more is going to substantially change it because we're only going to get faster. Yeah. We covered all our mistakes, right? All the weak spots because we reinforced it near the end, and that was pretty quick. Let's do our review, and we don't have to do the last part because we didn't hit anything today, which is expected because we were very engaged yesterday, right? Making errors, focusing on those errors, patch them up as quickly as possible. Not all of the errors came up. Oh, actually, I think we covered all of those. Now that I think about it, yeah. All right, so as per usual, we're using our mnemonics first, right? So spoon, winter, dry, canopy, fingers, window, heart, direction, stool, fur, father, old, roof, ask, arrow, door, poop, towel, life, now, hat, triceratops, ice, and stone. Right? Pretty standard stuff. And then now we're doing reads that we are responsible for, right? Man, nai, bun, setsu. I got stuck on this one again. Tai, tai, sho, i. Ne? You. You. You, she, guy, and guy. Right. I sort of hesitated on guy because we made the error, so I paused a little just to make sure. I slightly paused on all the errors that I've made in the previous day. It really makes sure. And then I was typing with a lot of intent. So I made sure that I didn't. There is going to be a very high chance that one of my buttons are going to double actuate. So I'm leaving a bit of a split second to double check on the screen what I'm typing. Largely because I have maybe 4 or 5 keys that double actuate every once in a while. And then I have maybe 2 keys that they don't actuate all the time. So I was very slowing down. Generally speaking, though, if we were going to type sentences and stuff, I would type a lot faster than making sure all my inputs are correct. It's one of those things. It's not really too much of a big deal. I might have to consider buying a new keyboard, or I do not have a hot swappable keyboard or any form of way to maintenance this, so not a skilled solderer as well. Can't repair switches. Let's see. Okay, and then what do we have? Man, nai, bun, setsu, ai, sho, i, you, she, guy, and guy. I'm doing this part because it helps me visualize and associate onyomi with my speech and my seeing the things, because the reads themselves are actually unique to On and Kun. As so far. Maybe there's an exception somewhere where some really bizarre exception where like, oh yeah, this is kun, but it sounds like on. But as far as I know, they're exclusive of each other. So largely this system will work going into the future, where if I know my categorization of on sounds and my categorization of kun sounds, knowing to visualize which one is associated with which one, it'll help me group them up pretty quickly. Because now we're forming the basis of, right, the basis of jukugo, right, the idea of okurigana, and then ideas of rendaku, because all these things are the focus of WaniKani, right? Radicals, kanji, and their relationship with construction of words. These things were not a particular focus, of pattern, like exceptions, like special reads, I'm considering frequency. These things are not something that can be categorized very well using Duolingo, largely because Duolingo does not focus on components. However, the kanji section of Duolingo uses it in a holistic way, in a contextual way. So they use word-to-word associations in order for you to discern different parts, different radicals. So I've kind of done some of these stuff already in my head. With the exception of onyomi and kunyomi, the distinction, usually I go about and say, oh, this sounds like onyomi because of Chinese, and kunyomi. So lots of that was going on. However, it wasn't formally focused on. So this can help me separate. Then things will truly sound like it's kun or on from the perspective of Japanese. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. And that's it. That's a wrap for WaniKani for today. Gotta keep going. Gotta prep for tomorrow. I'm largely prepped for tomorrow, at least for the next 2 days for the Duolingo Japanese. The essays and stuff that I'm going to talk about on the third day is still a little bit up in there. I have a lot of topics, so we'll play it by ear. Turns out there were 31 constructs for Duolingo Japanese in the last 100 days, as opposed to 34. So 3 less. It was interesting. We covered the 31, but I still have to do some due diligence. But yeah, this is pretty nice. It's manageable. I'm not sure what the peak. Obviously, maybe in another level or 2, we'll see another stack and see how the other stack works. However, the current routine that I have, we can get it down even further. If I were to take some liberties and type at my normal speed, I probably could get the inputs a lot quicker. So we're looking at, for an hour, outside of lesson day, right? Lesson day, we're gonna have to plan for lesson days to refine how we're gonna approach lesson days. However, like pure lesson days, like level up days are gonna be the gigantic days. All the review days, I would say, a typical session, I've already allocated 3 hours. 3 hours would be like 500 to 600 reviews. So if they have 500 to 600 reviews, that'd still be okay. I don't think it would take me 3 hours to do 500, 600 reviews. However, we'll see. Because so far, while actually the majority of these things are new, outside the vocabulary, right, outside the translations, so that means a half of the tasks are familiar, as in all the translations are fine. Legacy knowledge, all the reads, a lot of them are new, and like not all of the translations, maybe 2/3 of the translations. So about half of them, when all said and done, are actually new things. Still doesn't really stop me or stop the flow of my thought process. So we'll see how high our workload will get. So far, the only concern at the current concern is how long a session is going to go, not necessarily how long I can think or participate, because fitting things in is very difficult. there's no element of fatigue and or input diminished return. So what is that I'm referring to in diminished return? There's often a subjective, sometimes it's subjective, but you can measure it with experience. So subjective objective metric for an upper limit. And what I mean by the upper limit to what? Upper limit to short-term memory. So in a way, this is compounded subjectively, largely due to the nature that there are ways to measure it objectively. However, there is the element of practice, right? What type of strategies you're using to compress the information. What is your background? How much information are you accustomed to juggling? And for me, the diminished return is less than what we're doing now. So however many lessons we had last time, which I guess you could kind of estimate because all the radicals were a lesson, and then all these things were still a lesson because they're not done. So you could say 6, 10, right? This is 15, 15 plus roughly 10. So 10, 10, 15. Let's say 35 lessons. So 35 lessons is not my upper limit. So this is not past my limit yet. From our Duolingo perspective, the limit, so if this like doubles or triples, then we might get close to a limit thing. Duolingo, we were juggling both Duolingo Japanese and Duolingo Chinese. And together, each and every, together, they were together at one point, which they were stacked on top of each other. As in, lesson day was the same day, and that pushed me past like 90 elements. 90 elements that you can think in two batches of roughly 45 elements, and that was very taxing. It was very difficult to keep juggling that. So then I ended up staggering. So at most, it's still below the threshold of Duolingo. I had no problems juggling 45 new elements. So if lesson peak day, right? If lesson peak day significantly past 45 elements, then we might consider scaling back. I don't know it's a really big gap. It's between, my upper limit is between 45 and 90 at the moment. And we're talking about like 90 novel items, right? With an approximate 90% success rate. So we'll see. And another caveat to this, when we get past 45, the way WaniKani is doing it, it's not pure recall. So it's not purely active recall, right? Because these are flashcards, so they're going to offer you context clues. When I was doing my recall for Duolingo, when we're talking about 45 elements, this is pure recall. As in, I stare at the Duolingo screen and I try to recall things without any form of... The thing that I usually use is the theme. So I remind myself what the theme is in Duolingo, because I created a construct out of all the vocabulary words, all the elements to link all of them. In WaniKani, since we're not going to do that, we're not going to make constructs yet, largely due to the nature that it's based on a radical system and a kanji system, as opposed to meaning in words, right? Meaning in words on how they're introduced, and like grammar and whatnot, or grammar points. This way we won't do constructs because it will take a very long time to try to group them, and grouping them will distort the practice, which is random already. So it's actually much more quote-unquote difficult for randomization instead of pre-ordered. So let's say it goes up to 90. I still think we can go probably past at least 150 items, largely due to the nature that it's context-based. So you're given either the character or the sound. Heck, if they took away the character and only used the sound, that can be a thing too. But obviously, I don't think that's a thing for WaniKani. It's more about reading, right? Because it's kanji based. I would say 150 items would be fairly okay. Like 150 lessons, just skipping, like going cursorily, look at what's necessary and then remembering them, right? And I would say reviews, upper limit of 1,000 a day would be reasonable, largely because of context clues. I'm tripling and or quadrupling this because pure recall requires an exceptionally more aggressive and refined, way of retaining the information in the short term. So I can definitely see how this is incredibly attractive when it comes to SRS. It's a very low barrier, and you don't necessarily have to. You're gonna end. For me, I think for most people, you're going to run out of time before you become mentally fatigued, right? Yes, there are extreme cases like people that I could see someone, if they don't force a rest period, right? A rest period, you can see people going for days on end without rest, and rest is required. So at the upper limit of whatever they've designed, I don't think I'm going to peak at an upper limit. I think WaniKani's ability to regulate and say, hey, these are all the lessons for the day, you should take a break, and even at the upper limit, I think we might be okay here moving forward. And for review, review is review. It's practice. If I run out of time, we cut the reviews. Reviews will stack as much as they want. Largely on a good day, you can blast through all of them. On a bad day, do whatever you feel like. Usually review is, to me, the lowest effort for myself, so I could do them on bad days. I don't have to particularly be on my A game to do reviews, right? It's the practice situation. And that's kind of sharing some of my thoughts, my early thoughts on this, the mentality that I have. Review should be your reward, right? Review is something that helps you reinforce your consistency. For me, I do not delegate. I delegate a relatively disproportionate amount of energy to learning as opposed to practicing. Practicing has a whole lifespan. It's a very, very long time. So being able to detect if there's a deficiency in your review process or your performance requires a long period of time. Learning, on the other hand, can interfere with what you're reviewing. So if you're not learning or guaranteeing the encoding process to be successful, then your review will be hampered by it because it supersedes the reviewing process, right? And the way WaniKani has this kind of staggered is kind of nice. That's, I imagine that's how the SRS is attractive. And at the same time, I want to maintain an incoming lesson volume that I can still maintain a standard. And so far it's pretty good. Like last lesson, right? Last lesson peak, 6 or 7 points being dropped, and they were of the new lessons. So it happens, reading error, maybe talking, being distracted, lots of avenues to make errors that may or may not even be relevant to the understanding or comprehension of the thing. One can be distracted, and I often distract myself. And one of the ways to be a little bit more vigilant and do have refocusing purposes is distract yourself every once in a while and ask yourself, practice how you get back on task. I do this very, very often, every single day, so that's a disclaimer. I stream my learning. Most of my learning experiences that I voluntarily choose, I choose to stream. So when I stream, I'm unequivocally, consistently distracted by a different task. That task involves speaking out loud, voicing my thoughts, communicating, watching my cadence, my volume. All of this is being practiced while studying. So when I remove that, like for now, what I'm doing is how do I quadruple to, how do I reduce the time it takes to study Japanese by 75 to 80%? I stop talking, I focus, and you get up to speed, right? Now, the thing is, yes, it's certainly more efficient. However, I'm trying to develop multiple skills, right? So that has to be taken into consideration. I think that's something that is often overlooked, even though it's directly in front of someone. So, someone comes in and is like, dude, why do you make this error? It's this, of course. It's like, well, you have to remember when you're studying and when you're doing things, are you doing other things, right? Part of streaming and sharing the experience also involves developing skills necessary for that, at least in my opinion. You can choose to study and show you're studying and consider none of that thing, pretend like the chat's not there, pretend like you don't have to come up with stories, pretend you don't have to form ideas along the side of studying. That is your prerogative. For myself, to make it clear, when I am studying and doing WaniKani, I'm also thinking about a lot of other things at the same time, and it's not an excuse. So when I think it is distracting too detrimentally from my goal, I'll refine and be a little bit more efficient, right? Discipline is a way to counter distractions. When you welcome distractions, they're no longer distractions, but a part of skill development. And it kind of shows. I can see why this can seem, I honestly, if right now, right, how long has it been? Today's day 21. Yeah, I would say conservatively from my experience with volume and stuff, if one is to invest entirely on this tool for like a brief period, say for like a 3-month period, I would say the volume is too low for me. Which I'm not, because I'm doing other things. We're doing Hansa Hero. We're trying to get Duolingo Japanese back on track because of the review cycle, and then we're doing video games and all that. However, if I were to like plow through this, right, use all the techniques and possibilities of reinforcing the stuff, I think the volume is too low. Actually, I would probably say I can see why Anki people go a little ham in the beginning. I would say a decent volume for me would be 200 to 300 kanji a week in 5 days. Yeah, 200 to 300 kanji. That's assuming the super hyper maxed, optimized, super hyper focused approach that I feel a substantial number of people projects towards me all the time. Like, oh, you don't need this, just use this. If you only use this, then you can focus on efficiency and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'll give you a kind of idea. WaniKani is giving me an idea of what my upper limit would be for Anki. I would say I would juggle 300 or so characters a week if I were to dedicate entirely to that. To give maybe a rough idea of what it's like for my volume cap. Now, with all that said, I'm not going to do that because there are so many other skills, there are so many other ways to make it dynamic and more engaging. Bootstrapping, sitting down and saying, I'm going to get all of this out of the way in order to reach a goal and then start enjoying Japanese, that's not me. It used to be me when I was in high school, right? Or college, you have an exam and you haven't studied at all, or you didn't do anything at all. You didn't even do it. Then you do it all in like 3 days, right? I'm definitely guilty of that. And there were definitely lots of strategies and shortcuts to do that. I find that progressive, moderating stuff leads to a lot more sustainable and happy relationship. and a lifetime relationship with something. So learning a language does not end up becoming an optimized chore, right? That's what we're trying to keep preventing. So I'm really well within the safety limits of that. If this, if WaniKani is to triple or quadruple the volume, then I would have to consider some things as to not affect my mental state and relationship with studying kanji. For now, this is super casual. I really enjoy this volume. It's to the point where we're going to change gears now to Hanzahiro. I actually doubled the volume in Hanzahiro, largely because that functionality and feature is available. So that volume is substantially smaller. It's about 1/4 the pace of WaniKani, which I kind of like to bring it slightly closer, right? Thought I share that. That's the thought that came through my mind recently. I wanted to give an early impression of maybe some comparable metrics to the volume that I'm used to. And not that I aim for it all the time. You can do plenty of other things with all that volume, right? Sometimes, in my opinion, here's a personal life lesson. Maximizing things, right? Maximizing and optimizing things. There's going to be a point of diminished return, not only on your time, but also on your well-being. So if you can do 300, that doesn't mean you have to do 300 all the time. Running at 100% gives diminished returns. So if you keep pushing to the limit, you have to ask yourself, is the thing you're doing providing enough value for everything else you're doing? Because oftentimes the answer for me is no, it is not. If in order to push myself past a specific limit, and you're at like a really high upper limit, my thought is I can sacrifice 20% of that optimized performance to liberate it and tackle other types of skill sets. I can develop other skills while maintaining and slowly progressing against that diminished return of higher things. So memorizing things, check. I do not have issues with the performance or the steady state of my rote memory skills. I still don't consider myself as having like an extraordinary rote memory. With that said, I do make a disclaimer that at least for most of my life, I have been told and or evaluated on metrics that my rote memory is above average. Now, do I fully push that rote memory in one dimension of study all the time? No, I don't. It becomes a crutch, in my opinion. Like for myself, if you constantly rely on something, an asset that you have, it ultimately restricts you and stifles you in many ways on creativity. So if your rote memory is great, that's awesome. Now you can channel the utility of that rote memory for other skill building. So like, while I'm doing this, I'm going to invest in how I organize information, right? How I collectively remember extraneous things that may not be related specifically to the goal of WaniKani, but the context is holistic. Liberating some of that time to combat potential diminished return, which can lower someone's satisfaction, right? Like progress is slow when you get to a point. Like for example, if you are used to remembering hundreds of things and suddenly you got older and now it takes a really lot of effort to remember 110 things. You no longer remember better than you. It's great to stay intellectually active to promote that skill. Rote memory is a skill, like how you remember things are very skill bound. It's through practice. However, I am willing to maintain that while liberating a lot of that time to use that capacity for other skill building. So yes, when I'm learning Japanese, I'm strictly not specifically only learning Japanese. I'm learning how to communicate, how to teach. Like if I were to be placed in a position to advise, right, how to interact with people, staying topical on all the learning stuff, staying topical on the communities that are involved in the tools that are being made, right? These things, a bit of my performance going to these things create a rounder profile of your skills. Certainly, I'm still like using a lot of my efforts and capacity towards learning Japanese itself. And now it's being divided, right? It's being divided to Chinese. So wanted to reflect upon that a little bit because that is going to be one of the central themes when I'm talking about Duolingo Japanese starting tomorrow, right? Starting tomorrow, well, actually 3 days from tomorrow, because the conceptual review part is going to be 3 days on the third day. And just thought I wanted to share that now. It's kind of worth mentioning these things because I know how popular SRS is now, and the mentality that makes SRS attractive. That is one dimension. Like that is like one prong of acquiring new information, right? Of learning right now. It's not the summation of everything. It doesn't necessarily compensate for everything it cannot do or doesn't do by design. And I would say this is one of them, where, yeah, you can remember and put out lots and lots of characters very quickly. And I haven't really demonstrated that because I use Duolingo for the first 300 days of Japanese. And that required different aspects of applying my memory. Lots of people, came at me and said, like, well, you could learn more vocabulary a lot more rapidly with Anki or an SRS system. I was like, well, yeah, now I can definitely agree. Will I continue to embrace that idea that you can solely do that? No, it's the same way that I approach Duolingo. You don't necessarily have to completely optimize for the task that's presented for you. You can be creative and also include other tasks, other things you can do that, to me personally, this is my personal opinion, that creates dynamics that can combat particular things like fatigue, mental fatigue, and not like fatigue from not being able to remember things, fatigue from losing motivation, fatigue from monotony, mediocrity, routine. That stuff can really, really wreck, in my opinion, can really take a toll, and it's a slow growing toll. You become less and less enthusiastic over time. So ultimately, I'm doing something that illustrates where my tolerance is, right? How long do I stick to one thing predominantly in the same exact way? It might not be very apparent to a lot of people who sees like, oh, I posted 300 videos of Duolingo, but it's every 2 months or less. It's every 2 or 3 months or less I swap up something. I change something. I change the way I interact with the tool. So if the tool doesn't change, which oftentimes tools do change, right? Like for engagement purposes, like Duolingo tries to add or introduce something, or take a video game, for example, they find different ways to engage you with your knowledge you've gained so that bosses become more complex, new mechanics are introduced. Those are ways that you yourself can also do. It doesn't have to be predetermined by the tool. So, do you want to do that? Most people say no, and that, in my opinion, is an excuse to not to be lazy with creativity. That's perfectly fine if you don't have time for that. So what do you do instead? You find another tool. You find other forms of engagement that intersects with your goal of the current tool. So if you're tired of SRS, graded readers, like go out, check out some graded readers. If you don't like reading books, go and listen to someone babble about your favorite video game or something. These are intersections of similar, like it contributes to the goal, but it continues to give you more creative freedom in engaging with the thing, so you can keep monotony. It's kind of like a well-balanced diet, right? Obviously there are extreme cases where like, oh, I'm okay with eating bread and butter for the rest of your life. It's like, okay, all the power to you. That means your threshold is higher and it's maintained. That's a lot of discipline. That's amazing. That's actually extraordinary. On the other hand, for the people who think that they're not creative, I don't necessarily think it's because you're born not creative. It's more the hyper optimized thinking and mindset that is used these days in order to make you feel that you can achieve results, right? So if you're telling yourself Anki is life, Anki is, Anki is life, Anki is everything, and it's becoming everything, and then you have a love and hate relationship with it. When you have a love and hate relationship, it also means that you have no other alternatives. You do not feel like other alternatives are more efficient, nor do you feel like there is sufficient motivation for creativity in order to separate yourself and divorce yourself from something that you've started to identify with, right? That is monotony, boredom, grinding, coupled with an inability to be creative and be open-minded to other things. Right? It's a balance between those two. So why am I refocusing on WaniKani and Hanzahiro while also continuing to juggle Duolingo is largely the idea that this is the year to try something different, but also same but different, right? To other people, they might think, oh, the goal is the same, so there's no point in using WaniKani if you already use Duolingo, because the first 5 levels are going to be filled with things you know. Like, yes, that's like half the point. You get a third of a point for trying, right? For trying to understand, and then I'm filling in the rest of the context. This goes with fundamentals. If you think you're going to skip fundamentals all the time, then that's assuming fundamentals never change. Like your perspective on fundamentals, your way in engaging fundamentals rudimentarily stay the same. So cue the 2 different types of people. I'm the former as a preface, and I would say a substantial number of language learners are the latter. I watch a movie in English. It's amazing. I have certain comprehension, and now I'm learning a target language. I'm going to watch that movie again in that target language. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be different. Even though I know everything, I have different goals, different perspectives. If you are the latter, which is more like, oh, I've already seen the movie, so I already know what's going to happen, regardless of what the target language is, it kind of is less exciting and not engaging, right? That's the idea of generalizing your experience and limiting your mindset because you treat something the same, even though it's the same, but different. Very different, actually. And those individuals at the later ones, the exceptions that they give are the very few rare things they are incredibly passionate about. And that's a great way to balance things, I think. So things that you really, really love, you'll make an exception. You'll watch it in your native language, and then you'll watch it in your target language because you really love it. So that's kind of where I usually start. I ask, do you have something that you're willing to rewatch? For me, it's anything. Like I have a lower threshold, right? I'm on the kind of the other end of things. So if someone says, oh, this, I don't want to tell you anything, I've already seen this, is that you can tell me it. Like it's it's going to be a different experience. Like if you tell me what your thoughts are ahead of time and explain things on ahead of time, then when I go to watch the thing, I'm not watching it because it's my first time. I'm watching it because I want to know and frame all the information that person shared. They're two different experiences, not the same experience. The difference in approaching spoilers and investing in people. There are some times that for me, I prefer to take the opportunity to talk to this person than restrict their ability to share on the account that I have some selfish, warranted need to always experience movies the same way. It's a difference in prerogative and perspective. And I think the predominant type of viewpoint is most people agree that, oh, you don't want to get spoiled. And I often go in the spiel say it doesn't matter if it's like, it's less a mattering to me. Like I want to hear what you think. There's a chance that I won't even watch the thing or the movie or the book if you didn't spoil the movie, right? That is a consideration, right? There are many times when someone selfishly cares about spoiling, it's involving things that they like. But what if it's something that someone else likes, so that someone else tell you less and restrict the way they tell you those things because they don't want to spoil it because they're really interested. But in the process, you are less interested in that thing and you never end up watching that thing. So that is how I'm describing engaging things with a different mindset, right? It's the same as this. When you say this is the same as something else, you are de-emphasizing and you are reducing the chance you're actually going to do the thing. Now, that saves time. It's very pragmatic. And if it doesn't meet your goal, it's an excellent logical decision making. It also means you have no experience with this. You also don't care about this. And most of the comments you make means that this is less important. So when someone says, I don't need to go over my fundamentals, I don't need to use this product, I have to remind myself like, well, they will know less about this product and they're going to talk about this product in a manner that diminishes its interest, right? Then we go on YouTube and you read and look at videos like, I like this product, I don't like this product. So this is why you don't need this product and you need the product that I like. Immediately, that is how I would process and deduce that, well, I'll see what this person has to say about this product, and then I'll go find someone else to talk about the product they don't like because they've already established their bias, right? So when you go up and say, oh yeah, I only use Duolingo for like 1 month and then I decide to switch over to Anki. It's like, okay, so your Duolingo experience is restricted to 1 month and you are currently using Anki. So in most of the discussion will be involved due to recency about Anki. I wouldn't ask you about Duolingo outside of collecting the data. And when you make advice about Duolingo and comparing the thing you're currently doing to the experience you have to an item that you don't like, that requires self-awareness. Like, if someone says something like, oh, I've only used Duolingo for a month, but for the month that I use Duolingo, this is what I come to understand, and that's how it influenced my decision to use Anki. I'm more inclined to find someone having relevant information and being able to evaluate properly for my own benefit and my use when that is the case. Not someone who comes by and gives you a hot take and say, well, this product sucks and I like this product. And then the first question I ask is, so what is your experience with the previous product and which product are you currently using now? There are people who continue to use products that they disagree with in order to draw a contrast with the current product that they like better, right? Differing opinions, differing ways to interact. If I try a new product, I then am curious about how it relates to other products that I have tried before, right? Some people, when they try a new product, they forget about the old product, right? They move on. It's like it's something in the past. You don't have to revisit or remind yourself how long ago in the continuum of things have you last used something. It's to the point where they believe all their opinions are current, but they're not. They're literally not. As in, someone says, oh, this product is better. It's like, well, you used it for 3 years compared to using that product for 1 month. I'm not sure how to say this, but it's human condition, even if it is a bad product. Like, for example, if you decide to dedicate yourself and make the choice to using a product for 3 years, even if it's a worse product than the previous product, you wouldn't know the effects because it's clouded by, well, you spent 3 years on one product. It's a very well-known human condition that the more time you invest into something, the more positive you view about that, and that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. Yet I do see very few people who compare things like they are apples and oranges or apples and apples, yet their experience and their competence is apples and oranges. Just a thought. That relates to all of this. Having a amenable mindset, understanding what you don't know, right? Understanding what you don't know and understanding what you do know. If you hyper optimize for SRS, then that is something that I can ask you about. Making commentary on other methods as though they're not as good as SRS, that requires an asterisk, a disclaimer, right? What are your preferences? What have you done with the other one? And then try to qualify if it's better. Hot takes generalizations based on confirmation bias is something that I like to point out every once in a while when I get to know someone. But generally speaking, I do not make any comments or direct comments until I establish that this person understands that I typically think of these things first when someone provides information, right? You go around and say, oh, everyone's like this. And I'm like, okay, can you explain that to me? If you don't, then you're, in my opinion, I interpret it as an attempt to end the discussion before you are tackled with information that you don't know, right? It is very, very important to understand pros and cons and things that you're doing and what are compromises. I'm going to say, I said this for Duolingo. Duolingo doesn't do certain things, right? Like conversation, answer, response, those things don't happen. So I don't necessarily focus on that, right? I'm not going to expect that to happen. WaniKani, I'm not going to expect writing, right? There's no writing in this. So that factors into saying something is better or worse. So when someone comes by and say, well, this isn't as good as this because that has writing, it's like, well, that's apples and oranges comparison. WaniKani is not designed to have writing. What's your point? Right? You cherry picked a thing that exists in one instance and doesn't exist in another. Have you considered the existence of your non-knowledge of what WaniKani does then? If your importance and your interest is in writing, and then you choose a product that doesn't have writing, of course it's going to appear as though it's deficient. It's deficient by design in the thing that you're interested in. It's a big telltale sign when someone tells me a product that I am familiar with and they describe it, right? It tells me a lot about that other person. It doesn't tell that person what my interests are. So I think lots of topics like this will come up in the review soon. I'm sure this won't be the last time I talk about it when I'm using WaniKani. It's a very hot topic in language learning. People like prioritize and focus on what is more important instead of having an open mindset about using holistic approaches. Like, okay, use the method that you find is most efficacious. However, that's not the end-all be-all method. Learning is dynamic. There is a fallout oftentimes to a static learning routine. You can choose to tell yourself, right? And it can be so long. It could be like 4 years long, and that's good enough. Generally speaking, though, humans get tired of doing the same thing, however optimized it is. In fact, the optimization is what compensates for the boredom, right? The reward at optimizing is reducing the amount of effort you're placing into the task because it's becoming more and more boring and mundane. In my opinion, it's one of the coincidences. Make something more efficient so you have to spend less time doing something you no longer am interested in. It's no longer novel or interesting. You want to get it done as quickly as possible. Coincides with the great reward and feeling of doing something faster and faster, right? Cue the doom scrolls. Cue brain rot. How do you get dopamine faster and faster because you need more dopamine in a smaller period of time? Make it more efficient. Make the dopamine more accessible. And it gets more and more and more without any adulteration from any other type of stimuli. It's to the point where doom scrolling, right? This is a topical thing that I thought I was going to bring up today if Gecko was here. When you doom scroll, there's no other counter force for it. There's no other sources. There's no other. For me, getting on WaniKani and doing 50 lessons is far more dopamine than I could ever, a competitive source of dopamine, still to this day, than spending that same exact amount of time doom scrolling on TikTok, for example. So, without being able, if you do not practice different sources of ways to interact with an activity or a behavior or a source of something in the long run, like for example dopamine, you are going to optimize and hyper focus on that singular source. Language learning is no different, in my opinion, when it comes to the fundamental aspect of human behavior. When you do something for a very long time, it becomes super efficient, it nails you down to it, and you're not going to feel like anything else is more efficient than it, because it can't be. You didn't practice anything else. You didn't do anything else. At some point, that diminished return is going to kick in, but you've invested all your time, and then you hear these like hot takes like, you don't need Anki, you don't need WaniKani, you don't need these things. But all I hear, in my opinion, most of what I hear is someone transitioning from the monotony and the complacency of a tool to a new tool that helps them rediscover their engagement again, all over again. That is quintessentially the foundation of, I wasted 5 years of my life learning because I used those 5 years in the same way till it got dull and boring, and now I've discovered a new way, and here's the hot take. Well, I'm going to do one hot take for all those. There are tons of videos like this, in my opinion. I'm going to do one hot take that counters those hot take, and maybe someone else will counter mine. Yes, it's going to be cool until someone starts with your method, relies on your method for 5 years, and they're going to say, I wasted 5 years of my life doing the exact method this person did for the same exact 5 years. And here is my hot take. This is the new one. Hey, did you guys know SRS is pretty good? I don't see why no one is talking about SRS anymore. because influencers said SRS is boring now because everyone's doing it, and then moved to graded readers. So what is the hot take here? Both. The answer is both. Like, do both, or try to do both. Use, have schedule, have discipline, engage in both. They do both collaboratively lead to a similar goal and contribute to the goal. So trend chasing, especially for learning, is so oxymoronic to me, in my opinion. It's a little, right? That's a little hot, what I just said. But if you are tired of SRS, you're going to look for someone who says SRS doesn't work, and then they're going to tell you the next thing. Well, those people are going to do those things long enough, and it's going to be boring, and they're going to look for someone that says that is boring, and SRS is the thing. So back and forth. You have so many phases, like learning goes through trends. And in my opinion, that is an excellent poetic example of how humans go through trends. They do something for a while, they stop. They do something for a while, they stop, and then they might go back to the thing they stopped doing to restart over and over again. Now, you don't have to do it that way, but you can still get to your goal in that way. Technology can optimize for that, right? You can optimize a piece of tool that uses a different method and try to corroborate where your competency level is, your entry level is, using a baseline model of metrics. So if you used Anki until you got to, I don't know, JLPT 4, right? You can use a new tool and enter at JLPT 4. That's actually kind of reminiscent of people who say, I'm not from zero anymore, so let me go find a tool that's not from zero, right? To engage. So, hot take here, right? That was the hot take. It's a summation of how I think, in my opinion, one of the major trends, and it's the consequence of the internet age, where trends do not display continuum. It's nice that a lot of the influencers said what they used to do. That, in my opinion, is often brushed over as unimportant. It is very important to understand the continuum of things. If this person doesn't think you need Anki anymore, that means they used it long enough, hopefully, you would think, they used it long enough to either ascertain the function and or have grown tired of it. There's a context here. It's a bias here. Now, it's very different from someone who says, I've cycled through all of these things, and occasionally I look at the update of these things. I've updated all my experiences progressively and periodically through all these tools. That would be probably a person who have dedicated professionally to that, because that's so much time. So inevitably, all that time they invested would make them an incredibly valuable source of comparative advice, or comparative, somewhat subjective but also objective comparison. Not someone who says, oh, I've used only this for so long, and now I find out I wasted my time and you don't really need this, so I use this new product. I think this new product works really well. Like, well, my first thought is, mentally, any new product will feel refreshing, dynamic, and engaging because it's different from your last one. It's a placebo effect. Not that I'm saying the new product can't be better. Not highlighting the fatigue and potential placebo effect is, in my opinion, a little bit negligent if you are considering yourself to be providing professional advice, obviously. If you're not providing professional advice, it's an anecdotal story, it's an op-ed, it's an opinion. That's fair enough. I think there's sufficient people going around thinking that they're offering professional advice and yet have is negligent on providing a timeline, right? I will naturally use Duolingo less and less because I will be using more tools. Someone coming to me and asking me a question is like, oh, wait, are you done with Duolingo? Like, are you finished with Duolingo? The answer is no, right? Because I didn't finish it. And even if I finish it, I would still have to like maintain it or make some sort of summary. And then in the long run, Duolingo will still be part of the discussion, right? I'm learning these things in the context of my Duolingo knowledge. So it's not like it goes somewhere, it like evaporates when you don't literally see it. That's my opinion. I don't like dumping and wasting my time with knowledge I've practiced and acquired. Oftentimes when I see someone treat their knowledge and experience like that, they reduce my enthusiasm for their remarks. Like whenever someone says something like, I've used this for 3,000 days. Have I wasted my time? Like, okay, well, the answer is no for me, but I want to know this person's rationale for what they constitute as wasting time, because that is probably the most important thing that I need to know about this person, right? If that person said they wasted their time only to redirect myself to a new product, then I no longer can be very reliant on using the context of, oh, hey, I'm using the same thing and they say it's a waste of time. It's no longer relevant, in my opinion. It's like 80 to 90% chance it's no longer relevant, because whatever it is, it's someone who's moving to something new, so they're enthusiastic and learning about it. The placebo effect can account and explain for 70% to 80% of the motivations and the positive lens that people have. Just my thing. I'm not saying everyone does this. Trendsetters, content creators who trace trends and name drop are habitually, maybe unintentionally, and unaware of doing this and repeating the behavior over and over again, right? It's very appropriate. It gets reinforced by the algorithm. They make money off of it. There are a lot of things that perpetuates trend chasing, right? Saying you did anything for 3,000 days is a trend. Like, number goes up. This person says they did Duolingo for 300 days. All right. Well, I guess I'm going to have to do Duolingo for 400 days. And then I'm going to make a video that's bigger than 300. So 400, number goes up. Right? That kind of thing. Lots of patterns to be made. Anyways, speaking of numbers go up, these numbers are going up. And with that, 1 hour and 30 minutes. Not bad. Not bad. That was one of the stories I was saving for today. It wasn't much activity on the WaniKani forums, so I wanted to say something like those are my thoughts from interacting with people that I've met over language learning. Some of the thoughts that I'll keep in mind for the future, and thoughts that I can reflect upon myself. So hopefully I didn't hurt anybody's feelings. These are all contentious points. These are opinions. I'm not a professional language learner, nor am I a trained psychologist, right? I am a hobbyist who enjoys looking at behavioral patterns at the intersection of utilizing tools, right? How habit forms, dependencies, and generally absolutely love learning. And so if there are any type of information or behavior that I can glean and share that gives people an ability to look at learning in a really wonderful and healthy activity that you do for the rest of your life, I'm going to share it, right? I think having some sort of 10%, 15% of your life dedicated to learning it keeps the mind healthy, where the body can possibly not provide, right? Working out, fitness is absolutely essential. It's obligated. Working the mind and keeping you mentally active and stimulated and happy is voluntary. Like it you might be thinking, no, it's not voluntary. You have to like work and stuff. It's like there are people who work for 60 years in their life honing a single craft and they can be very, very satisfied with it. That is a counter argument to learning, right? You can be satisfied. It is voluntary to learn. But the idea is, for my purposes, the goal of sharing my experiences is to lead to creativity. Creativity is my euphemism for encouraging people to learn. In order to be creative, you need to learn new things, be exposed to new things. And it doesn't have to make up the entirety of your life. I'm thinking 10%, maybe even 5%. You learn a new fact once, one fun fact a day, and then use your existing knowledge to integrate that fun fact into your life, right? That is a creative process in which you take information and you figure out how it can be useful to you. You're learning something and you're learning to retain it. Language learning is absolutely a brilliant, wonderful technique that I love to see for people who have lost the interest and or capacity to believe they can learn something new at any age, really. In fact, it's kind of just scary and disappointing to think that there are people as young as 18 years old that says they've learned everything they need to learn and they can live the rest of their life happy without having to learn anything else, right? It's their choice. What I'm doing is finding as many different ways to encourage them to even be interested, like contemplate about adding that pickle to your dish. Contemplate about air frying your kimchi. Like, it could be a disaster. I mean, it could taste awful, but the idea is that person is learning something, they're engaging in something, and they're trying something. Every once in a while, right? I don't want to suggest people go ham and trend chase and define their entire life by the existing trends. Every once in a while, right? I have yet to try pickles with Oreos, apparently, because Jiao mentioned it. So I'll have to try that sometime. All right, folks. That's a good little, on that positive note, right? On that positive note, I'm going to get up, stretch, do a few somersaults, hydrate a little bit. I'll be back for Hanza Hero. So for those who are only interested in Japanese learning, right? And WaniKani, and you're going to watch this later, arigatou gozaimasu. So until next time, mata ne, ja ne, minasan. Yeah, I'll be back. Thank you.